Gucci Flora Gorgeous Jasmine.
The new eau de parfum.
A name and a date at last for Prince Harry's controversial memoirs. Entitled Spare, the autobiography is due out on the 10th of January and promises raw, unflinching honesty about his life as a prince. Even months before publication, it's already making waves.
It doesn't sound like it's going to be sweetness and light, this story. It's going to be, I was the spare, not the one that was wanted, I feel.
Well, the book will very likely cause consternation at Buckingham Palace with its highly charged title and risk of unflattering revelations about royal relatives. So just how damaging could it be? Also tonight, calls for the government to raise the levy on energy firms as Shell reports £26 billion profits but pays no windfall tax.
Yeah, sure. All right. Hand just over to your hands. All right, Gemma, at this moment, I'm arresting you on suspicion of murder. Okay, you have to...
Guilty and branded an evil woman, the osteopath who murdered a friend, faked her will and dumped her decapitated body. Condemning Qatar's human rights, the Australian football team's powerful message ahead of the World Cup. And lean times for black cats, why Halloween's feline favourite has fallen out of fashion.
People come to us and they want a ginger cat, a torty cat, a tabby cat, but not many come to us and say they want a black cat.
This is the ITV Evening News with Mary Nightingale.
Good evening. The book's title is loaded, its implication pretty clear. Spare, a reference, it's said, to Prince Harry's status as royal second son, rather than heir, of course, and his feelings about that. There's been no shortage of publicity about the forthcoming memoirs, but today the revelation of a publication date and pointed title might well add to royal worries. We now know the book will emerge worldwide on January the 10th. The publisher's description of the contents, raw, unflinching honesty, will do little to reassure the palace. Amy Lewis reports.
In just one word, Prince Harry is making a huge statement that his highly anticipated memoirs will not hold back in revealing his struggles growing up, not as the heir, but as he puts it, the spare. The title is provocative and the content potentially explosive.
It doesn't sound like it's going to be sweetness and light, this story. It's going to be, I was the spare, not the one that was wanted, I feel. It has a feeling of that. To get 20 million for a book, you have to have some really hot and pretty horrible stories.
The publishers promise it will be full of revelation, starting with Prince Harry's early life and the death of his mother, Princess Diana.
By this point, the world knew our exact location.
He has already revealed his willingness to discuss his private life since quitting being a working royal almost 3 years ago.
I went to all the places which I thought I should go to ask for help. We both did, separately and together.
So you left because you were asking for help and couldn't get it?
Yeah, basically.
But following the death of his grandmother, the Queen, he appeared in public to reach a truce, albeit a fragile one, with his brother, Prince William. The autobiography's release has been delayed, leading to speculation that it has been watered down to help repair his rift with the royal family. But to what extent?
There's going to be, I suspect, an element of whinging in this book, which I think, we've kind of got the message now. And if he was to come out with some deep, dark secrets about the royal family that we don't know, I would think that would reflect very badly on him.
We're told never to judge a book by its cover, but given the title, this autobiography risks damaging an already strained relationship and embarrassing the monarchy in the process.
Well, Amy, obviously you can imagine the royal family anxious wait for this book, but it is a chance, isn't it, for Harry to put his full version of events?
Yes, Mary, whether or not he wanted it or not, he has spent his entire life in the public eye and therefore has spent his entire life facing the scrutiny that comes from being in the spotlight. And so since he's moved to America, he has for the first time had the opportunity to put his side across. And now with these memoirs, he can do it in his own words. And he said today that he is going to be donating a lot of the proceeds from the book to charity. But nonetheless, for the royal family, it's going to be perhaps quite a tense wait over the next coming months as they wait for the publication of the memoirs on January the 10th. To date, the publishers have said that the autobiography will contain raw, unflinching honesty. It's going to be full of insights and revelations. It's going to be published in 16 different languages worldwide. Buckingham Palace today have declined to comment.
I bet they have, yes. An uneasy Christmas beckons, maybe. Amy, thank you very much indeed. Now, there's been a big backlash today after the oil giant Shell reported profits of more than £8 billion in the third quarter of the year, bringing its total profits so far this year to an eye-watering £26 billion. Now, fueling the outcry is the fact that Shell has not paid and does not expect to pay any of the windfall tax introduced by the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, while he was Chancellor. Now, as our business editor Joel Hills reports, it sits uncomfortably alongside the millions struggling to pay their fuel bills.
Shell is on a roll. The war in Ukraine has caused a spike in the market price of oil and gas. The business is chalking up sales it could only have dreamed of a year ago, but many of its customers feel much poorer.
Disgusting when we've got our own elderly people who are petrified putting their heating on and having something to eat the same day. That's disgusting.
I think it's absolutely brilliant if you're a shareholder, but as a driver, absolutely over the top. That time they give some back to the taxpayer.
Oil and gas production is where the profits are the most plump, not the forecourt. Shell, like all of the oil giants, is awash with cash, and the company accepts windfall taxes are inevitable.
It is a societal reality that governments, rightly so, and for the right moral reasons, help the most vulnerable in society, and that they will be looking at companies like us, who benefit, of course, from the volatility and the prices that we see, to fund the programs that they are rolling out. I think we have to accept that and we have to embrace that.
Between July and September this year, Shell made an eye-watering profit of just over £8 billion. The company's made £26 billion in the first 9 months of this year and is galloping towards a record annual profit. The UK has a windfall tax. In May, Rishi Sunak introduced a 25% energy profits levy on oil and gas production in the North Sea. But Shell said today it doesn't expect to have to pay the levy this year. Shell spends a lot of money decommissioning old gas and oil fields in the North Sea and exploiting new ones. The government allows the company to offset these costs against its UK tax bill. As a result, Shell doesn't expect to make any money in the North Sea until next year at the earliest. What happens then depends on the market price of oil. Below $70 a barrel, the windfall tax falls away. The government still thinks its energy profits levy will raise £17 billion this year and next, and it points out the tax is designed to encourage companies to reinvest their profits in the UK, not to punish them, but is the tax working as planned?
I suspect Treasury officials will be looking quite closely at this and asking themselves the question of whether this really reflects new investment or whether this is scoring investment that would have happened anyway.
Shell's mega profits are unpopular at the petrol pumps, but it is sharing the spoils with its shareholders. The staggering dividends the company is paying out will benefit millions of pension savers in the UK. The burning question, though, is should Shell be paying more in tax?
Joel, you said in your piece that Treasury officials are looking closely at this. I bet they are. Do they need to change their policy, do you think?
It's really hard because, I mean, it's raining oil and gas money at Shell at the moment, and not because of anything the company is doing, but simply because of the war of the Ukraine has pushed up gas and energy prices. The contrast between the fortunes of the energy companies, all of them, and their customers could not be starker. The chief executive of Shell says he gets it. He said, just you heard him there, I'm ready to embrace higher taxes. The The UK has a windfall tax. We learned today that Shell won't be paying it this year. In fact, next year at the earliest, because the North Sea operation isn't making any money. Labour says that's clear proof the tax is badly designed. Shell argues it's the opposite. You could argue it's proof that the company's been incentivised to pull oil and gas that we really need out of the North Sea that would otherwise sit there. Officially, the position is the government is not looking at the tax, but headlines like Shell makes £1,000 a second are hard to resist.
They certainly are, aren't they? Joel, thank you. Now, the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, has come under attack tonight after Downing Street revealed he will not be attending next month's COP27 climate summit in Egypt. Number 10 says domestic commitments prevent him from going, but critics are calling it a massive failure of leadership. Now, it came as the United Nations issued another grim warning about the global catastrophe of climate change. Current plans to cut carbon around the world would take just 1 degree off predicted global emissions for 2030. That means we are heading towards a temperature rise of 2.8 degrees over the century. That's nearly double the target. So to achieve the desired rise of just 1.5 degrees, a 45% cut in global emissions is needed by 2030 rather than 1%, which is what they foresee. Well, our US correspondent Emma Murphy joins me now. Emma, you were with the President at COP26. It is a really bleak outlook, isn't it, at this year's summit?
It is extremely bleak, Mary. When they all gathered, if you think back just 12 months ago, all those world leaders led by President Biden, they did an awful lot of talking. They really publicly showcased what they wanted to do to try and reduce the impact of climate change. And there was a feeling at the time that there was a certain amount of hot air and that it was just talk. The reality seems to be that the UN feels that's exactly what's come to pass, and they are not mincing their words when they come to say just what a serious situation we're in. They describe the last 12 months as an utterly wasted year and say that all those world leaders who gathered in Glasgow have really failed to make any significant changes to their plans to try and reduce global emissions. And of course, they also refer us back to what's gone on over the past months in the world itself. You know, just in the last few weeks, we've had the devastating effects of Hurricane Ian here in the United States. There have also been those terrible floods in Pakistan and wildfires in the UK. And I think there is very much a feeling from the UN that they have to try and make governments understand that they need to take immediate action now if they're to avoid anything short of what they say is a global catastrophe.
Emma Murphy in Washington, thank you. Now here, an alternative therapist convicted of murdering and decapitating an elderly friend before faking her will was described in court today as an evil woman. Gemma Mitchell, a trained osteopath who boasted online about her skills in human dissection, dumped Mi Quen Chong's headless body in woodland 200 miles away. From northwest London, Sam Holder reports.
Gemma, do you want to come up?
Gemma Mitchell looks shocked when police turn up at her door.
Gemma, at this moment, I'm arresting you on suspicion of murder.
But she'd committed a murder that was meticulously planned, killing and decapitating someone who called her a friend. In June last year, Mitchell, who'd learnt how to dissect bodies at university, left her home with a suitcase. Hours later, she can be seen with two, struggling to pull them. That's because the one on her right contains a body. 67-year-old Mi Quen Chong, known as Deborah. The pair, both devout Christians, met at church. What inspired this hellish murder was greed, and at its heart, the house in North London that Gemma Mitchell called home. A series of failed renovations meant it was falling apart, and the cost to fix it was hundreds of thousands of pounds. So Gemma Mitchell concocted a plan to kill Deborah Chong and take her money. She created a fake will, appearing to leave Deborah Chong's entire estate to her to pay for repairs. Mitchell waited a fortnight to dump the remains, driving more than 200 miles to Salcombe in Devon. Deborah Chong's headless body was discovered by a family out on a walk.
I just found a body. Right, okay, a body, is it, are they breathing? No, they're dead.
The car stank, didn't it, Gemma?
No comment.
In police interviews, Mitchell gave no comment. Throughout the trial, she gave no evidence.
Mitchell's never accepted responsibility for Deborah's murder, so there are certain questions which may remain unanswered. Why she kept her body for over a fortnight, why she decapitated her, and why she deposited her remains in Salcombe. But what we do know is that it was an evil act carried out by an evil woman.
Someone who professed to be a person of faith, who used that faith to get close to and kill an innocent woman for purely financial reasons. Sam Holder, ITV News.
Vladimir Putin criticised the former Prime Minister Liz Truss today during a wide-ranging speech in Moscow. The Russian president said Liz Truss was crazy when she raised concerns about nuclear weapons. He said he has no intention of attacking Ukraine in such a way and says he's only ever responded to criticisms from Western leaders. Well, the controversy continued today over Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's reappointment of Suella Braverman as Home Secretary. Downing Street was forced to come out in support of her tonight, insisting she has what it called strong relationships with the security services, despite being sacked by Liz Truss over a security breach just 6 days ago. But as our political correspondent Libby Vina reports, a number of MPs have expressed their concerns.
To ask a question to the Home Secretary about her resignation and reappointment.
Gone away. Gone away? Well, she didn't stay to defend herself yesterday. And today, when facing other questions, didn't turn up either.
Where is she?
Pressure for some answers from Suella Braverman, reinstated as Home Secretary 2 days ago, continues to grow, including from her own side.
From my own knowledge, there were multiple breaches of the ministerial code. In fact, multiple breaches of the ministerial code. It was sent from a private email address to another member of Parliament. She then sought to copy that individual's wife and accidentally sent it to a staffer in Parliament. To me, that seems a really serious breach.
The new Tory party chair rejects that.
Do you think she can stay on?
I think she was very straightforward in her letter. She said, when I realised I've made a mistake,
But what
I
Jake
resigned.
Berry says is that she didn't.
Well,
she didn't confess to making a mistake. It was presented to her as evidence, and then she agreed to resign.
You're using words like confess. When somebody realises they made a mistake, if somebody highlights it to them, and they think that they have been mistaken and have broken the ministerial code, she resigned immediately. This Prime Minister looked at the detail, addressed it yesterday, and quite rightly felt that Suella is deserving of a second chance.
But one former minister isn't convinced.
What I think is apparent is that there are big questions hanging over this whole issue. And to be frank, I would like to see them cleared up so that the Home Secretary can get on with her job. If that means a full inquiry, then I think that's the right thing to do.
While another Tory MP tweeted, MI5 need to have confidence in the Home Secretary, whoever that might be. It needs to be sorted ASAP. And in the Lords, a warning about the possible consequences from a former Home Secretary.
One is that the security and intelligence services will be reluctant to provide the briefings and the openness needed. And the second is that other international and security agencies will be reluctant to share with us.
The fallout from the new Prime Minister's reshuffle appears far from over. Well, the Prime Minister's official spokesman was asked today whether MI5 did have confidence in Suella Braverman, and he said yes, but the fact that such questions are being asked is awkward, and it's not just journalists and Labour asking those questions, but also Conservatives. It suggests that despite yesterday's show of unity at Prime Minister's questions, Rishi Sunak is still leading a deeply divided party.
Libby Vina at Westminster, thank you. Well, there's plenty more still to come in the ITV Evening News, including why another election now looks inevitable in Northern Ireland after the latest attempt to break the political deadlock. And
it's quite conceivable that we may be having to look at shutting pools, shutting facilities as we go forward.
we hear about the impacts rising energy bills are having on leisure centres and schools across Wales.
The schools have always been very resilient, isn't it, and making it work, but I think this time it is going to be a really tough call and we need all the help we can get.
Well, do join me for those stories and much more after the break. See you then.
Play the health lottery for just £1 and you could win £100,000. But you're not the only ones who win. Oh no, so do thousands of local health causes. So it's win-win. Well, actually, with thousands of winners every week, it's more like win, win, win. With millions to be won every month, there's plenty to feel good about. Play for £1 in store or at healthlottery.co.uk.
I was addicted to smoking for years, a very bad habit. And my son knows it too, so it was time for me to quit, and I did it with Nicotine.
Nicotine Clear Patch provides 24 hours of controlled nicotine release.
And if I have a craving, I grab a mini, which works fast.
Use Nicotine Clear Patch and Minis, an unbeatable way of quitting smoking. Now working with Asthma and Lung UK for healthier lungs every day.
Treat yourself with extra payday savings on all autumn sale prices. Everything's reduced, starting 10 till 10 today at SCS.
Motley Crue, Def Leppard, The World Tour. Lytham Festival, Lancashire, Sunday 2nd of July 2023. Get tickets Friday 10 a.m. at lythamfestival.com. Motley Crue, Def Leppard, The World Tour.
When they can't stop jumping in puddles, there's Windsor's. When you're heading out on the town, but it's chucking it down, there's Windsor's. All your footwear essentials, all of the time, there's Windsor's.
Christmas isn't just one day, it's lots of days.
This early Christmas? Birthday Christmas.
Kids-free Christmas!
And then, of course, there's Christmas.
Gifts for all your Christmases at Very. Choose pay now, pay later, or pay over 3 months and pay no interest.
Sear each side until nicely browned. Add the cognac. And flambe.
Be a bad time for the broadband to go down. Don't worry. Vodafone full fibre broadband is up to 5 times more reliable than standard. You did switch to Vodafone, right? Save £200 on average versus BT when you switch to Vodafone, the UK's largest full fibre provider.
Sell your car the motorway way, where dealers compete to give you their best price. Motorway, the way to sell your car.
Sensodyne Repair and Protect Deep Repair is really exciting. This Sensodyne is creating a protective layer. It goes deep inside the tooth to repair sensitivity. The science behind this toothpaste is life-changing. I recommend Sensodyne Repair and Protect Deep Repair. I think it's amazing.
Hello, savings.
Yes, Log. In the Dreams up to 50% off autumn sale, till Tuesday there's 20% off all bed frames when bought with a mattress.
Dreams. Sleep matters.
Welcome back. The family of a student stabbed to death in a popular university area of Manchester paid tribute to him today. Police are still hunting the killer of 19-year-old Luke O'Connor, who was attacked in the Fallowfield area of the city in the early hours of Wednesday morning. Luke's family described him as a gentle giant who was loved by so many. Kelly Foran reports.
What happens next is too graphic to show, but these are the moments that led up to a 19-year-old student, the one here wearing a blazer, being murdered. He's been named as Luke O'Connor, a second-year student at Manchester Met. His family say he was a gentle giant, a bubbly, lively, beautiful boy.
On this side of the road where it happened, we have halls of residence. On the other side of the road, there are streets lined with houses. Thousands upon thousands of students live in this area.
I'm literally living like 30 metres from the scene, so it is a bit scary now.
Do you feel safe here?
No, but I never really did anyway. It feels like really grim and like just dull walking around, like knowing that's happened where you live.
It's gone a bit crazy lately, that's all I'm saying, like.
it's a bit scary times.
Less than half a mile away from the murder scene this morning, another stabbing. Police don't believe they're linked, but say they'll be upping patrols in the Fallowfield area. A few streets from here, Kelly Brown put up a bleed kit after her teenage son, Miro, was stabbed to death last year. The idea is to help stop bleeding before an ambulance arrives.
It's totally heartbreaking. I can't put it into words how I'm feeling for the family right now of what's gone on. Knife crime's not going away. We just need to tackle it and come together to prevent it and make a change.
The police are introducing stop and search powers in the area tonight and say they're relentlessly pursuing the suspect. Kelly Foran, ITV News, Manchester.
A new election for the Northern Ireland Assembly looks certain tonight as last-minute efforts to break the political deadlock look doomed to failure. Assembly members have until midnight tonight to restore Northern Ireland's devolved government by electing a new speaker at Stormont. Well, Vicky Hawthorne is at Stormont for us right now. So, Vicky, explain what is going on.
Mary, a last-ditch effort to try to restore government here at Stormont failed earlier today, with the Democratic Unionist Party, the largest unionist party here, continuing to refuse to take part in power sharing in the Stormont Assembly in protest over the Northern Ireland Protocol, the post-Brexit trading arrangements with the EU, which the party believes is damaging Northern Ireland's place within the United Kingdom. There was a Stormont election back in May, but because 6 months have now passed without a government being formed, the law states that another election must be called, and that duty falls to the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland, Chris Heaton-Harris. Previous people in that role have found a way to shift deadlines, buy more time when politics here has become difficult, but Mr Heaton-Harris is insisting that when the midnight deadline falls tonight, he will call an election, and it's left many people here asking what a difference an election here will make, especially if people vote along the same lines, because the DUP insist they will only return here to government when the new Prime Minister secures changes to those trading arrangements with the EU.
OK, Vicky Hawthorne at Stormont, thank you. Quick look at other news now, and members of the UK's largest health union are voting on whether to take strike action over pay. Unison is encouraging 350,000 NHS staff, including nurses and paramedics, to vote in favour of walking out, but the government in England is urging members to consider the impact on patients. Meanwhile, a ballot in Scotland has been paused after a new offer was put forward. And after weeks of further travel disruption, mayors across the north of England have called on the government to treat the chaos in rail services as an emergency. In a statement, city leaders say last-minute cancellations are causing misery for many and damaging the economy. Now, the issue of the cost of living crisis was once again brought to the forefront today by the news we reported earlier about the profits made by the fuel giant Shell. But it is not just families and households who are struggling to make ends meet. Councils in Wales are pleading for more funding because they say inflation and the rising cost of fuel has left them facing a £700 million black hole. The government of Westminster says it is sending more money than ever before. Our Wales reporter Rhys Williams reports.
Halloween preparation is going well at Craigvillen Primary School near Swansea. It's a chance to have some fun and be creative, but those faced with keeping the radiators and lights on inside the school are genuinely scared about what's to come.
We've got our school kitchen, which we use for breakfast club and for cooking our meals. And we've got our community kitchen, which we use to work with our families after school in cookery clubs.
For this head teacher, cutting back on vital services like the breakfast club, a lifeline for struggling families, is not an option.
We're open from 8 till 5. That obviously from the time they come in and beforehand using energy. I'll be honest with you, schools have always been very resilient, isn't it, and making it work. But I think this time it is going to be a really tough call and we need all the help we can get.
It's absolutely horrendous. It's bigger than we've seen in any of the years of austerity.
For council leaders, the sums being talked about here are terrifying. Swansea is facing a funding black hole of £44 million next year.
And that's largely driven by energy prices, going from 5 million this year to 20 million next year. And those energy pressures will be felt in places like this because most of our energy is used in our schools, in our community centres and our care homes.
On paper, not quite as important as schools, but vital community assets like leisure centres are at risk of going under.
We're in discussions with the 3 local authorities we work with in Wales, and it's quite conceivable that we may be having to look at shutting pools, shutting facilities as we go forward.
In here is our main boilers.
Leisure centres require a huge amount of energy to run, and staff are doing what they can to save money. They've already lowered the water temperature in this pool, but it's a drop in the ocean. And the constant economic gloom is taking its toll, with memberships cancelled as fees go up, while others depend more and more on centres like these.
You come here for different reasons, young goals, socialise, swim, gym. I shower more here now, bring a towel after the gym because it's cheaper than showering at home.
You go with your friends, you have coffee afterwards, and you know, I mean, they really are leisure centres are a way of life for people our age right now.
Welsh councils say cuts are inevitable and warn they will be painful, but they're calling on the Welsh and UK governments to increase their funding to plug a £700 million hole in their accounts next year and keep them afloat. Rhys Williams, ITV News, Swansea.
You're watching the ITV Evening News. Here's what's still ahead before Emmerdale. A minister resigns from Nicola Sturgeon's government over plans to make it easier for people to change their gender.
These are the basic rights that should be afforded to all and will ensure continued progress in Qatar.
Australia's footballers unite to speak out against Qatar's human rights record ahead of next month's World Cup. The black cats who get all the bad luck, why superstition and our desire for a perfect picture means many are looking for a home.
And with Halloween just around the corner, find out why this year's weather has really affected this year's pumpkin crop. I've got all the details for you coming up shortly.
But before that, campaign groups and charities are calling for urgent change after an ITV News investigation into the treatment of asylum seekers who are either pregnant or new mothers. In a joint investigation with the group Liberty Investigates, we uncovered the shocking fact that 8 babies had died who were born to asylum seekers in Home Office accommodation. Women have told us about overcrowded and dirty conditions while experiencing a culture of discrimination. Our social affairs correspondent Sarah Corker spoke to 2 of the women about their heartbreaking stories.
When I found myself alone, homeless and pregnant in Scotland, being moved from one place to the other and you don't know what the next day is going to be.
Alvina came to the UK from Zimbabwe. Heavily pregnant, she was moved from hotel to hotel by social services for weeks. The rooms often dirty, damp and with no windows. At times, she couldn't even afford the bus fare to get to hospital.
Most days, I missed those appointments because it had to be hospital or food. And on the days that I actually did miss the appointments, I felt like the worst person ever.
What impact did that stress, did that anxiety have on your pregnancy?
I was like overwhelmed. I was crying all the time. I didn't know what to do.
She believes the stress and poor housing conditions brought on premature labour, giving birth 2 months early. Thankfully, her daughter survived, but it was a traumatic experience.
When the nurses came to me one day and said, we're going to need baby clothes now because she's out of the incubator. So I just broke down because I panicked. I said, well, I don't have any clothes for her. I don't have anything at all. I would honestly describe that as the worst possible time of my life. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong on the day.
So we're quite busy this morning.
Many, like Alvina, have to rely on charities for their basic needs. At this clinic, volunteer midwives and doctors make sure they get help and support.
The women that come here have been through a lot. They're traumatised generally. They're very isolated. They're resilient, but there's only so far that you can be resilient.
What do you make of the way these women are treated?
It feels pretty brutal. It feels that they're not heard, they're discriminated against, they don't have parity of experience in the NHS.
Official documents seen by this programme reveal 8 babies died while living in asylum seeker accommodation between 2016 and May of this year. 7 of those deaths occurred in the last 2 years. And while the cause of some of the deaths is unknown, and it's difficult to say whether they could have been avoided, campaigners say the circumstances must now be fully investigated. The level of trauma Maria has endured is hard to comprehend. She says she first escaped an abusive relationship in Angola, then further abuse in the UK. She thought asylum accommodation was a place of safety, but 34 weeks pregnant and in agony, she claims housing staff refused to call her an ambulance.
Everything was just so confusing. I screamed, "For the love of God, help me!" I started to panic. I was crying the whole time. I was just in so much pain, a really intense pain.
And they refused to call for help, they refused to call an ambulance?
Maria claims she was left heavily bleeding before anyone helped her get to hospital. By then it was too late.
The doctor said to me, "Maria, I'm so sorry. Your baby has died." I refused to believe it in that moment. I thought everything was okay.
Maria's treatment isn't an isolated case. Testimony from other women paints an alarming picture.
Women who are migrants are not treated well. They don't count us as anything.
The basic things I need when I'm pregnant. I can't sleep well, I can't rest well, I can't even eat well. So how will the baby grow?
One woman described how doctors performed a caesarean section without fully telling her what they were doing.
I was so scared. I thought I was dying.
We need a wholesale investigation into the circumstances surrounding the deaths of those infants that have been reported, and we need a complete review of the care that is provided to asylum-seeking women during pregnancy and early motherhood, so that we can start treating asylum-seeking pregnant women in the same way that we treat every woman.
Brenda, can you do it? Back in Glasgow, Alvina is making precious memories, but the pain of what she's been through hasn't faded.
I'm just really grateful that she's okay and she's meeting all the milestones, but I'm one of the lucky ones.
What has been the lasting impact of this experience on you?
I'm still traumatised by my birth experiences, to be honest.
Maria is still living in Home Office accommodation, which she says is cramped and substandard. She now has 2 young children, but will never forget her first child.
The pain of losing a child is like a tattoo. It's unforgettable. I celebrate my baby's birthday each year as if she was still alive.
Both women are now speaking out publicly in the hope others don't suffer as they have.
And Sarah is in our Leeds newsroom tonight. Sarah, I mean, it's heartbreaking. It sounds completely inhumane, doesn't it? To what extent do you think this indicates that there's a real issue with care for expectant mothers and indeed newborn babies within the asylum system?
Mary, it's important to put these numbers into context. Our investigation has revealed that in total, over the last 6 years, 107 asylum seekers living in Home Office accommodation have died. We know 8 of those are babies, and that is an infant death rate that is far higher than in the general population. And it's a figure that doesn't actually include stillbirths or miscarriages. And that is why campaigners are saying that it's a worrying trend that needs to be fully investigated. Now, in response, the Home Office have told us that the welfare of asylum seekers is of utmost importance. They say that they work closely with the NHS, with charities, with local authorities to make sure that they get the help
healthcare and access to support that they need. They don't routinely comment on individual cases, but in a statement said, it is misleading to suggest that any death that occurs while someone is in the asylum system is a direct consequence of that system rather than of natural causes. Tonight, though, Mary, there are growing calls for a full review into maternity care for asylum seekers.
Sarah, thank you. And you can see more of Sarah's investigation on our website tonight. That's itv.com/news. Well, now let's get an update on what's making the news tonight. Already highly anticipated. We now know the title and the publication date for Prince Harry's memoir. Spare will be released in January and promises raw, unflinching honesty. Alternative therapist Gemma Mitchell is facing life behind bars after being convicted of murdering and decapitating an elderly friend before faking her will. And there is anger after the oil giant Shell reported profits of more than £8 billion in just 3 months and has yet paid no windfall tax in the UK. Now, Scotland's First Minister Nicola Sturgeon had to fight off a major rebellion today over her government's controversial gender recognition bill. The bill, which makes it easier for someone to change their legal gender, passed its crucial first stage. But several MSPs rebelled and one of Nicola Sturgeon's ministers resigned. Let's get more from our Scotland reporter, Louis Scott.
I was very lucky because literally everyone was just really supportive.
Ellie Gomersall came out as trans when she was 18. She says the most difficult part has been the admin. A change to the gender recognition law would allow her to finally update her birth certificate.
I mean, I've not applied for one in these 4 years because it's just too expensive for me and it is too invasive. If I wanted to get married or if I were to pass away, there's no guarantee that my marriage or my death certificate would accurately reflect me for who I am.
The Gender Recognition Reform Bill in Scotland would change the way a legal certificate is granted. The age to apply would reduce from 18 to 16. Applicants wouldn't need medical records and they'll only have to live in their acquired gender for 3 months rather than 2 years. The application would then go to the registrar rather than a panel. A change campaigners say they've been fighting for too long.
I think there's a lot of misconceptions that this is giving us new rights or something that other people don't have. It's giving us access to a process that we should already be able to have, and yet we have to fight daily to have this.
But this is a controversial law with fierce opposition. Author J.K. Rowling is supporting a women's rights group, posting a photo calling Nicola Sturgeon a destroyer of their rights.
Well, this bill is a major societal change. It's basically opening up a process for anybody to change their sex or gender for whatever purposes they want and for whatever reason they want. There's no definition in the bill and there's no safeguards.
Division also lies within the Scottish Parliament. An SNP MSP has resigned their ministerial position today after members were whipped to vote in favour. The Scottish Conservatives oppose it, but were giving their members a free vote.
According to recent polling, a clear majority of the Scottish public who oppose the removal of key safeguards. Sadly, so far, these legitimate concerns, I believe, have been ignored by this government.
This reform does not give trans people any more rights than they currently have. It reforms an existing process.
The bill passed stage 1, but there's still a long way to go before Scotland joins other countries in allowing gender self-identification. Louise Scott, ITV News, Edinburgh.
Australia's football team tonight became the first in the Qatar World Cup to offer public criticism of the host country. The team's spoken out against Qatar's treatment of migrant workers and gay people. Yasmin Bodabai reports.
It is for these reasons we must speak about the situation in Qatar.
This is not a slickly produced film, but its starkness perhaps makes it all the more powerful.
We have learned that the decision to host the World Cup in Qatar has resulted in the suffering and in the harm of countless of our fellow workers.
16 of Australia's best players squarely calling out human rights issues in an uncompromising black and white message. In contrast, ever since Qatar was awarded this World Cup, things there have been in full technicolor. But it's faced uncomfortable questions. Human rights groups claim thousands of migrant workers have died in the last decade, people getting the country ready for the World Cup among them. Qatar disputes those figures. Some say homosexuality is equally dangerous in the Gulf state, where it can be punishable by death.
As players, we fully support the rights of the LGBTI+ people. But in Qatar, people are not free to love the person that they choose.
Qatar has said that LGBTQ+ fans will be welcome to the tournament, but this England fan says he doesn't feel safe enough to go.
We'd have to be sort of suppressing who we are, taking steps to be making sure that we're not noticeable, that we're not standing out, that we're not drawing attention to ourselves. And if that's who I'd have to be to go, I don't want to go. I don't want to be there if I'm not free to be myself while I'm there.
Harry Kane is among many team captains who'll be wearing this One Love armband. Campaigner Peter Tatchell staged a slightly louder protest this week in Doha. He says all teams now need to be as blunt as Australia.
I hope that other football teams around the world will follow suit and make clear, unequivocal statements supporting human rights in Qatar.
The Australian players do acknowledge some new labour laws, but this video is nothing less than a plea for major reform.
Effective remedy for those who have been denied their rights and the decriminalisation of all same-sex relationships.
They say giving basic human rights to everyone would be the tournament's best legacy, long after the final whistle. Yasmin Bottleby, ITV News.
Still to come on the ITV Evening News, the black cats having to wait longer than their feline friends for a forever home.
And I'm in the heart of the Kent countryside to find out why pumpkin picking is extra special this year. I've got the full forecast coming up.
Do join Lucy and me after this short break. See you then.
This one's big enough for the whole squad. The whole squad. Ross, can you keep it down, please?
Extra bums on seats with Snug.
When they can't stop jumping in puddles, there's Windsor's. When you're heading out on the town, but it's chucking it down, there's Windsor's. All your footwear essentials, all of the time. There's Windsor's.
Until Monday at United Carpets and Beds, don't miss amazing half-price offers. There's super soft carpets, sensational twists, sumptuous Saxonies, or why not add a splash of colour? All half-price in our Design for Living collection and fitted for free when buying the underlay. And there's luxury wood floors, stylish vinyls and much more.
Or save up to £300 on our Silent Night collection, all with free fast delivery.
Plus, pay nothing for 12 months, then take 3 years to pay. Don't miss amazing half-price offers at United Carpets and Beds, but it must end Monday.
If you want broadband and TV, then here's a blockbuster bundle for you. Get broadband and TV for just £6 a month until 2023 and enjoy incredible entertainment from Netflix and Now.
What's next? This England? Ooh, how about something Ireland? Huh. That's more like it. Scooch up.
Be quick. Offer ends 3rd of November. Join BT today.
Hello again. Welcome back. Spooky news, perhaps, for those preparing to celebrate Halloween with a carved pumpkin lantern. The summer heatwave and drought has massively reduced the pumpkin crop. Lucy Verasamy has the weather for us from a pumpkin farm near Maidstone in Kent. So, Lucy, what have you found there?
Mary, I've spent a lovely afternoon here in the heart of the Kent countryside, a 25-acre pumpkin farm. Kent, of course, is the Garden of England, and it's been a glorious sunny day, a near perfect autumn day here. Temperatures peaked at just over 20 degrees. It's been a remarkably mild October following a record-breaking hot summer. And I spoke to pumpkin farmer Charlie earlier to find out how this weather has affected this year's harvest.
This summer's been an interesting one. It's obviously been very, very hot and incredibly dry. So what tends to happen is the seeds, a pumpkin seed will produce up to 3 or 4 fruit per plant. Due to it being so dry, it's only putting all its energy into producing 1 fruit per plant. So we're getting one really lovely fruit. So we're getting good quality, but not as much quantity.
So with fewer but better quality pumpkins this year, it's not only families going pumpkin picking and getting ready for Halloween next week, foodies have been getting in on the action as well. I learned that squashes and pumpkins last for up to 3 months, so perfect for winter warming recipes as the temperature begins to drop. No sign of that just yet. The temperature's staying very mild for the time being. I've got all the details in the forecast for you now.
Visibility may be low this evening as the cold weather hits. Heinz Soups sponsors ITV National Weather.
Well, it's been a remarkably mild October so far. We're on track for seeing one of the mildest Octobers on record, both by day and by night. It's been almost frost-free for all of us, and temperatures peaked at just over 20 degrees today, can you believe? By no means wall-to-wall blue sky and sunshine. We've got blustery winds as we end the week, a good deal of clouds, some rain to come in the next 24 hours, but all the while those temperatures miles above average for this time in the year. If we take a look at the bigger picture across Europe, we've got rain working its way in from the mid-Atlantic as we approach the end of the week. We draw in warmth from the southwest of Europe, from Spain and Portugal, so temperatures again will be up a few degrees as we end the week and go into the weekend. Highs of 20 or 21 degrees possible. Into the next few hours, we've got mostly dry conditions to begin with before rain makes some headway into the west, a soaking wet into the night across Northern Ireland and western fringes of Britain. And for all of us, notably mild, not much below 14 or 15 degrees. It really is quite something to see temperatures like this so late in the year. And into tomorrow morning, that rain makes some headway from west to east. Not the best morning for Scotland and Northern Ireland. The rain persistent and heavy for the journey into work. That rain pulls away into the near North Sea, stalling across northern Scotland. For the rest of us, cheering up quite nicely as we approach the end of the week. Breezy and bright, wonderfully sunny and pleasantly warm. Temperatures reaching around 20 or 21 degrees once more across the southeast.
Heinz Soups sponsors ITV National Weather.
So that's it from me here in Kent. It's been a very mild day, a similar theme into the weekend before things change into next week.
OK, Lucy Versamy, thank you. And finally, pumpkins might be in short supply for this year's Halloween celebrations, but apparently there are plenty of that other Halloween tradition, black cats. The only difficulty seems to be finding enough people to adopt them. So tonight, as Martha Fairley reports, an appeal's going out for potential owners to come forward.
Aren't you gorgeous?
12-year-old Stevie is a black cat whose luck is in short supply. He's been at the RSPCA in Brighton for over 60 days now, waiting to find his forever home. But despite their glossy coats, handsome feline features and affectionate ways, it takes twice as long to rehome a black cat. And just like Stevie, 8-year-old Sid has also found himself overlooked in favour of something more exotic.
People come to us and they want a ginger cat, a torty cat, a tabby cat, but not many come to us and say they want a black cat. And I think it's that kind of idea that it's a plain black cat. And nothing special about them.
At this cat cafe, customers can take tea with a tabby or a tortoiseshell, all of them rescues looking for someone to take them home. And while visitors here would happily house a black cat, they've also found it takes longer to find them a permanent place.
I do prefer the black cats just because of the way the light reflects on their fur. I think they look gorgeous. So last year we had a black cat called Mavis. She stayed almost a year with us until she was adopted. It took that long, unfortunately. Everybody else was going off to their new homes and she was still there.
But perhaps Gemini can find a perfect home this Halloween. A black rescue kitten who will leave any cat lover spellbound. Martha Fairley, ITV News.
Oh, I think I want Gemini. Well, that's all from us tonight. Tom's here later with news at 10, but from me and all of the evening news team, bye-bye. Have a good evening.